Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a double helping of gameplay in possibly what is now one of, if not my favourite tier 10 medium tanks in the game. It is the SDB-1, and take a look at this Akura camo, the style from the Holiday Ops on this tank. I think it is a match made in heaven, right? So the SDB-1, a vehicle which was significantly changed back in the game last summer. In the 1.5.1 update, Wargaming pretty much tried to completely change the way the SDB-1 worked from being this all-round 105mm to actually having a hydropneumatic suspension. When they did this, they nerfed the alpha damage of the tank from 390 down to 360, but massively increased the rate of fire, so you actually got over a 100 damage per minute increase. Combine that with now having, at that time, you had 6 degrees of gun depression, but you could use the hydropneumatic suspension to gain an extra 6 degrees of gun depression. And I thought the tank was epic. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed the vehicle back then. But obviously it wasn't enough, because Wargaming just decided to, I guess, make it more comfortable to use the vehicle even without the hydropneumatic suspension. So what do they do to it exactly? Well, they changed its gun depression up from 6 degrees without using the hydropneumatic suspension to 8 degrees in one of the patches after 1.5.1. And so that means now that the SDB-1 can actually get 14 degrees of gun depression if it's using its hydropneumatic suspension, and the 8 degrees that it can do pretty much all around, at least the most of the vehicle, apart from when you're right over the back of the tank. And so now, the SDB-1, really, it's gone from a tank that had maybe like a 50 or even a 50.5 or a 51% global average win ratio. It's slowly creeping up. And it might actually not be too long before this vehicle has the highest win ratio, at least on the European server, out of all of the tier 10 medium tanks that are freely available inside the tech tree. It's just really that dominant right now. You've got gun depression, you've got armor, you've got 400 meters view range. Also, Wargaming smashed up the gun handling to an incredible fashion so you can actually snap in your shots. And all of this has led to the SDB-1 just being absolutely, truly dominant. Just listen to these buffs with regards to the gun handling that the tank received back in that 1.5.1 update. 2.3 seconds aim time to 2 seconds. Its dispersion values changed from 0.16 when moving and 0.14 when turning the turret to 0.09 and 0.11 respectively. It changed this tank from being a tier 10 vehicle that had tier 9 gun handling to being a tier 10 vehicle with tier 10 gun handling that also has all of the flexibility that you need with regards to the gun depression and the gun elevation to truly be the all-round performer. And so I think this tank is actually the best 105mm wielding vehicle in the game now. Now, if you want to, of course, if you want to have armor, you want to have a turret, then you want to go for something like an Object 430 or even an Object 140 if you want to be a little bit higher on the damage per minute list than the 430 and you don't mind sacrificing some of the alpha damage and a little bit of the armor, especially the frontal armor, to be able to gain that. Or if you absolutely hate Soviet vehicles, then the M48 A5 pattern is a great choice as well. But while the M48 A5 pattern has a solid hull loadout, because the side of the tank is very well angled, it's like this boat-shaped hull. It's as if it's kind of got a big belly and it's hanging over the side, and when you angle it to the side, it's actually very angled, and it can be surprisingly good for being able to ricochet a lot of the shells. When you over-angle the side of the M48 A5 pattern, you can use that to your advantage. So if you don't need that, because really the M48 A5 makes a huge amount of sacrifice with regards to the camo rating that the vehicle has, the mobility that the vehicle has, and it doesn't even really have the damage per minute that the SDB-1 has with this incredible 360 alpha damage. One thing I'd like to highlight is that I apparently, and I've got to triple check this, but a lot of people have been telling me that the way that module damage works in World of Tanks is not actually based on the alpha damage of the shell, but it's based on the caliber of the shell. Apparently that is the case. Now that makes the SDB-1 very interesting indeed, because even though they reduced the alpha damage of the gun from 390 down to 360, they massively increased the rate of fire, but the caliber stayed the same. And so that means that now locking down the tracks of your opponents with the SDB-1 feels like an absolute breeze. Even if you miss a shot, it doesn't even feel it really matters. You're going to be able to reload quickly to be able to re-engage them. Alright, so I make a bit of a misplay in the game here. I don't feel like that's a very good trade. I'm trading 360 with a tank 2 tiers lower than me, and I take 390 in return. What am I really going to do against an IS-3A? Not much. What am I going to do against an Object 430U there? I really felt like I wanted to actually help my allies out. I wanted to try and help the Centurion 5-1, but unfortunately, I just think I was maybe a little bit too ambitious there. And I don't really want to get stuck into that trade where I throw away my life just to be able to try and save a tier 8 medium tank. Now you remember that I got shot earlier by the EBR-90, and so I'm blind firing the bushes here because that EBR-90, well, they have actually been spotted now, and I realized that. I thought they were still up in that location. Not sure if I actually tunnel vision there and the EBR was always spotted or not. Anyway, it doesn't really matter because now we're going to get our tier 10 Japanese medium tank in the ultimate ambush position. Just look at this. So much opportunity. We're trying to keep our DPM high, trying to fire on reload. And just look how responsive this tank is. One of my favorite things about this vehicle is that it can go backwards at 25 kilometers an hour. That's just wild. The fact that this tank can go backwards faster than a mouse can go forwards, 25 is really quick. Quite often you end up in those awkward situations against a light tank or a heavy tank where they're trying to drive to get your side, or maybe you just want to even try and change the angle and reverse around them. You can kind of do that with the SDB-1 now. Oh, worst shot of the game there. Absolute disaster. We are now 6 minutes into this game of World of Tanks, and I'm at 7,300 damage that we've seen. This vehicle is just absolutely ridiculous, ladies and gents. And there's still 4 tanks left on the enemy team. I was hoping that maybe we could manage to get a little bit more, but my dead driver is certainly slowing us down here. So we put an AP round through the side of the Sturitsfarm 103B, trying to find out where that Ferdinand is, and there's the Ferdinand who puts a good old round into the side of my vehicle. However, I do 1,100 spotting, and we finish them off with a 370 damage roll. Not too bad. And now, here we go. We're going to use some of that gun depression to be able to just poke our turret up over the ridge, shoot the standard B, and reload so quickly. And this is a very important moment. Did you see that I wasn't even using my hydrogen pneumatic suspension there? That was 8 degrees over the side of the tank. That was purely because of the buff that Wargaming did in post 1.51 to the tank, which is absolutely tremendous for the vehicle. Having that 8 degrees of gun depression, just absolutely ridiculous. And so, goodness gracious, did we just do 9,000 damage in, ooh, how many minutes is that? 7? Less than 7.5 minutes? Yeah, boys and girls, this tank is pretty wild. And if you're looking for 105mm, look no further than the SDB-1 at the moment. But how about we show you some more gameplay anyway, considering how short that battle was. This time, we're playing on Karelia, we're defending against an assault, and seeing how the game has spawned me out towards the east, I decided that I wanted to be able to go and crush that flank. This game was from the same play session, albeit a few games afterwards, so I played this game about 8 games in a row. No, I played this game, unfortunately, about 50,000-60,000 games now over the last 10 years. Oh my lord, unfortunate. Nah, man, I've had a good time with it. Alright, so I played this tank, though, about 8 games in a row, just on a play session when I came back from Belarus on Tuesday, my first play session back on Belarus on Tuesday, at least the one where I didn't have sleep deprivation. My Monday play session was absolutely horrific. And yeah, the difference between playing this game when you're tired and playing this game when you're not tired is ridiculous if you want to try and be at least reasonably competitive. So I decided, I feel very confident in this game. There's only 2 things that I'm worried about. You saw how I had a look to my right there. That's because I realized that if you're close to that ridgeline, then some of the tank destroyers can manage to harass you. I'm also a little bit worried about the artillery on the enemy team. And this Lansen, well, good job, Mr. Lansen. I actually bounced off him. I'm very surprised about that. But that tier 8 Swedish medium tank always seems to have surprising ricochet angles, especially off the upper hull. Probably should have shot the guy straight in the turret, though we would have been able to at least chunk a little bit of his hit points off. So the Lansen probably doesn't want to fight around with this tank. I can't blame him. I wouldn't want to fight with this vehicle. But oh dear, here we go. It is a Su-130 PM who fluffs the shot, but we definitely don't fluff the shot into their tracks. We put a second round in. Now we're going to be reloading a high explosive round so we don't have any low roll disasters. And wow. Just wow. Absolute destruction there. Put 3 rounds in before they were able to fight back. And we put a second round into the Batchat. Well, sorry, our first round into the Batchat 25T, and I thought I was going to lock down his tracks. Just look at that reload. What is this tank all about? Enemy team seems to think, oh, we can catch him. He's fired. I'm safe. Mate, you're not safe. No one's safe from the SDB-1. We turn round, angular armor towards the Leopard to be able to ricochet a shell off there and think, shall I engage him? Bounce a shell from the Centurion, action 10 in the side, put 1 into the back of the Lansen and take a big old hit from the Leopard. That was 470. That's a good roll. I'm bouncing the Batchat from down below. Can you believe this thing has just the all-round performance right now? It's got the armor, it's got the depression, it's got the DPM, it's got the mobility. The only thing the tank doesn't have anymore is 410 meters base view range. If it did, then it would probably be outrageous because I could drop the coated optics on this tank and use the vents. That's one of the downsides as to what Wargaming did to this vehicle when they did change its statistics in the 1.5.1 update, as they removed 10 meters from its base view range, which meant that you have to use coated optics now. I think maybe if you had the best crew and you're willing to use premium consumables and you had the bond equipment and maybe you were willing to use one of the bond directives as well, you could probably get away without coated optics, but I think you would be jeopardizing your performance at long range if you choose to do that. And that is a very expensive way to play this tank as well. But this thing, so competitive right now. I'm even thinking that I'm not sure if this thing would be very good inside a ranked game mode. I think this is a bit of a pub stomper. I still think that I'd rather play something with a little bit more armor. We're just like waltzing around here. Do you see the mobility? Switching in, switching out, locking down the tracks now, making sure that I'm on the side there. We have 35 millimeters of side armor on this vehicle, which allows us to bounce 105 millimeter caliber guns. And I wish I'd actually rammed to this guy here. If I'd rammed to this guy here, I wouldn't have taken the extra damage from the Centurion Action 10, or even just an extra shell from the Leopard. So a bit of a misplay there. I should have just given him a little bit of a ram. But wow, did we just get a fire on the Centurion Action 10? No, it was somebody else. It was some YSM finishing him off. But 5,000 damage in the 4 minutes that we've been in this game, and the 4 kills, looking for a shell into the EBR. Just managed to miss that. All right, so from this situation, where should I manage to go? Should I manage to go around the south, or should I manage to go through the center? Well, if I go around the south, I kind of like lock myself away from all of my allies, which might be a bit of a misplay. And once you manage to make your way up the slope, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Alternatively, if I make my way around this corner instead, I can manage to get support from my allies. I'm not going to allow myself to be all in from the enemy tanks. And with 851 hit points left, it's not really enough to take multiple shots from the Borsig, let alone a variety of other vehicles. I think he might be out of place, Mr. AMX CDA 105. We're going to casually pick up an extra shell, another 1,000 spotting on that tier 8 TD. And now we're going to waltz our way into position to try and just maximize everything that we can. All right, EBR 90 out towards the western flank. Should have some time instead to be able to find the Borsig and the 53 TP. We're going to put one round into the Borsig's tracks, locking their tracks down. We bounce a shell from the Borsig. We get some tracking assistance there. We put one round into him, reload an HE shell so that we should have enough alpha damage to be able to take out the M40-43 in a single shot. Unfortunately, we get penetrated by the 53 TP. We reload an AP shell, and then I realize, oh yeah, here comes the EBR-90. You cheeky sausage. Gosh darn it. Bit of a frustrating end for the vehicle there. I was hoping that I was going to be able to just waltz my way into position here, go and get some shots against the 53 TP. Unfortunately, that wasn't going to be the case. And that bloomin' sneaky EBR-90 came all the way back from the other flank to be able to finish us off. Oh well. Game manages to finish it, and it looks like Dark Syndra in the chat is saying, I guess I've been recognized even though I'm using the anonymizer. That happens. Just 2 absolute ruffle stomps in the SDB1. Sure, these were +2 matchups. I really don't think there were many, if any, other vehicles that could have been able to achieve what the SDB1 was able to achieve here. Let's have a quick look at the post-game stats. So our first round in the SDB1 was a Confederate medal and a high caliber and a tank sniper, but not an ace tanker for the 5,200 damage that we dealt. Was that because we were dealing a lot of that at long range when we weren't spotting? Well, no, not really. Over 2/3 of our damage was dealt at less than 300 meters, at a distance where you would hope that it would spot for yourself. Did fire a few heat rounds here, but oh well, still made a profit with a premium account. And this game, we bounced half of the shells that we received. The very next game, it was a high caliber for the 6,627 damage dealt, and this time it was an ace tanker, because I guess I was spotting for myself, but also spotting for my allies. And look at the amount of damage blocked. 3,000 damage blocked. Now, was that because we were getting shot by lots and lots and lots of tier 8 tanks? Not entirely. Quite a few of the rounds we blocked were from the Leopard. They were from the Batchat. They were full-blooded tier 10 tanks with full-blooded tier 10 penetration that we were able to ricochet because of just the awesome turret armor that this thing has frontally. Definitely don't want to get caught in the side, and be very careful when you're using the side armor on this tank, as the side armor of the vehicle is 35 millimeters, which means that if your opponents have a gun caliber larger than 105 millimeters, you will not be able to side scrape inside this tank. In this game, however, we didn't fire any premium rounds, at least I don't remember, so we managed to make a very decent profit indeed, and just an all-round dominant performance for a very dominant tank. The STB-1. I don't really know why Wargaming decided to buff this tank so much, because it did have above a 50% win ratio on the server. It wasn't an incredible vehicle. It wasn't overpowered. It wasn't something that you'd turn to be dominant in every situation, but it was definitely still a strong tank. When Wargaming buffed this in the 1.5.1 update and then took it to a whole new level when they gave it 8 degrees of gun depression outside of the 6 degrees of hydropneumatic suspension that you can add on to that to be able to get 14 degrees of gun depression over the front of the tank, they catapulted this vehicle to being one of, if not the most competitive tier 10 medium tank that's available outside of the reward vehicles. And so the STB-1, definitely time to dust one off inside your garage if you haven't checked out this vehicle since the 1.5.1 update. And considering what kind of a dominant position that this tank is in right now, it might actually be time to kind of like bite your fist a little bit and get through the Cheeto, the Chi-Ri, and the STA-1 and the Type 61 aren't even that bad to be able to get the crown in the Japanese medium tank line, the STB-1. Anyway, ladies and gents, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, and if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know if you agree about my opinion on the STB-1. Have you been playing one recently? Did it surprise you? Or have you taken it out onto the battlefield and you feel that it just doesn't really live up to the hype? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.